And in this particular episode, talking about the situation here in Israel on this sunny blue sky day, Friday, October 4th, 2025. And we're now essentially at the 72-hour mark. In fact, we've gone a little bit past it. But whatever. I suppose maybe the end of today, we could say, no less. 72 hours from the time it was announced, right? So maybe tomorrow, because of the extra day that Trump gave Hamas to decide whether they are going to proverbially do number two or get off the pot, so to speak. Whether they're going to accept the proposed Trump Witkoff peace plan, which Israel has already accepted by way of the Prime Minister announcing publicly that he was accepting the peace plan. He accepted the peace plan. So the 20-point peace plan is effectively accepted by Israel, is also accepted by all of the leading Arab and Muslim state actors, including Qatar, which is obviously the big Shalom, which is the big Shalom, which is the big state actor that funds Hamas, and that is the party that pays for Hamas's terrible actions. So they have accepted the peace plan as well, Qatar, as well as other Arab countries and Muslim countries. And they have said that it's time for Hamas to give up and let go of the hostages, withdraw from power, and end the war. And on top of that, the Europeans have also said the same thing. All the countries that declared that they would recognize the so-called state of Palestine, and many more, have said that they expect the Hamas to surrender and give up the hostages. And there'll be some kind of exchange of hostages for terrorists who are imprisoned in Israel. And there are a lot of things in the plan which are yet to be defined, including who will police Gaza specifically, what their mission will be. I mean, it's vaguely written who will do it, but it's not specifically written exactly by numbers or anything like that. Who will be in charge of the chain of command, and what will the relationship be between that force and the Palestinians, and that force and the IDF. There are a lot of things that are still vague, up in the air, undefined, unspecified, that need to be hammered out before they can be implemented. But at least on paper, if the sides agree to it, then these things would be worked out by negotiation in some way at some time. But it is, again, not specified. But at least if the beginning of the process can be implemented, the hostages would be freed immediately, basically, and the fighting would stop, right? Well, so why is Hamas dragging its feet? If their source of funding, Qatar, has been, and propaganda, Qatar and Al Jazeera, it's their propaganda weapon, why would they be dragging their feet and not just accepting this outright? Well, first of all, they are ideologically driven people in the Hamas, who run the Hamas. And they don't want to see an end to this fight. They believe that they can win the propaganda war and thus eventually win the overall war, which is insane, but that's what they believe. And they are hell-bent on destroying Israel. Doesn't matter if they've rewritten their charter and all this other BS. They say it again and again and again and again. They will do October 7th again and again and again and again if they have the ability to do so. And that's what they intend to do, which is why they cannot be left standing. Our enemy has declared many times that they want to kill us all. And so it's us or them. Who do you think we're going to choose? Hello there. Hi. Do you think we're going to choose our enemy and let them kill us all, or attempt to kill us all and commit more mass slaughters every year? No. We're going to choose to get rid of them by hook or by crook, one way or the other, because they have declared war and they have committed atrocities to further their evil goals. And we're not going to allow that to happen. And yes, you may disagree on the technicalities of this agreement or whatever, but Israelis want the war to end, just like the Palestinians, in theory, want the war to end. But which Palestinians want the war to end? Because Hamas certainly doesn't. And don't tell me Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinians, because they do. They represent a significant portion of them. If you go around the West Bank and ask them if they support Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, or Hamas, the majority will tell you they support Hamas. If you go around Gaza and ask, well, there's no real great polling happening in Gaza, but there are still a large number of people who support Hamas. And it doesn't matter if some mayor of Gaza City said, no, we all hate Hamas now. But it doesn't matter if there's some protests of thousands of people. It doesn't matter. There's 2 million people there. They still have a lot of support. Why? Because there are still a lot of people who are extremely brainwashed there, who still hate Israel and hate Jews and think that we are the source of all their problems, when it is in fact they themselves who are the source of their problems. They just refuse to see it and take responsibility for it. They're not accountable. They expect the world to infantilize them. It's the bigotry of low expectations. Is exactly what that is. The world has not put normal expectations on the Palestinian people, and therefore treats them like children. And as a result of that, the Palestinian people keep getting away with bloody murder and pretending that they're poor, harmless refugees. They're not poor, harmless refugees. They're not children. They are a people, or they are a group of people who think of themselves increasingly as a people, even though they have a lot of division and feudal tribes, a lot of fighting between them. And they, if they want to be a cohesive group as a people, fine, although they don't act like it. Look at all the different tribes they have within them that fight amongst themselves. But even if a majority of the tribes don't like Hamas, guess what? They also, for the most part, don't like Israel or Jews. They've also been brainwashed over the past 40, 50, and 60 years to hate Jews and to see us as the source of all their problems. All the problems in the world are the Jews. Oh, it rained too much? It's the Jews' fault. It didn't rain enough? It's the Jews' fault. We're poor? It's the Jews' fault. We have too much taxes to pay? It's the Jews' fault. Everything to them is the Jews' fault. Everything. Oh, it's Israel's fault. It's the Jews' fault. To them, it's all the same. They all say Yehud, and they all say Israel in the same tone of voice and anger and hate. So why is Hamas dragging its feet if their source of funding is cut off? Well, I'll give you a clue. The source of funding isn't cut off. Qatar has not cut off their funding yet, despite any protestations to the contrary. And more importantly, Iran, as poor as it is, relatively, as much trouble as it's having giving fresh water and electricity to its own citizens, is still paying Hamas. They still pay them. And the UN still pays the Palestinians living in Gaza through their digital wallets. Every time I say this, it seems to astonish people. They literally get money. Every Palestinian refugee inside Gaza, inside Judea, inside Samaria, and guess what? Outside of those territories as well. They have a digital wallet. They have a UN digital wallet. UNRWA, whatever. UN wallet. They get money digitally. Which is why, by the way, they dabble so much in cryptocurrencies, which is not a problem. I have no problem with cryptocurrencies. But when people wonder, how do they have money in Gaza? Well, some of them trade, actually. They make a lot of money trading crypto. Some of them just hold their digital cash, which are Israeli shekels, usually, because that's the currency they use. or they get paid in dollars and convert it to shekels and then pay for things in shekels. Right? That's why they can afford 40 shekels for a bag of flour, 50 shekels for a bag of flour, whatever it might be, $50 for a bag. It's insane prices. They can afford it because they're getting paid every month. Their refugee payments, right? And every month they're collecting those refugee payments digitally and living on, you know, as whatever it costs them to live. But they get far more in digital payments than they need to live in a place like Gaza right now. Most of them aren't paying any rent. And they're either living in tents or they're living wherever with relatives who still have homes or friends who still have homes. But they're not living normal conditions. They're not living normal lives. They're living lives of people who are uh, in a war-torn place without a normal economy. For example, like Israel has a war. We are in a war-torn country, but our country is operating effectively, kind of normally. מה זה הלייב הזה? זה, אחי, זה הלייב שלי. אני מדבר על דברים. יקום של דין, אוקיי. אני לא דין, וזה לא היקום שלו. אבל אם דין היה פה, הייתי אומר לו, תגיד משהו. The reason the Hamas is dragging its feet, to be very clear and very blunt, is because their way out. They see their way out of this conundrum, which is to accept the peace plan and thus effectively lose the war, including amnesty that they would be granted, right? Which says that Israel would not hunt them down. Right? If they accept that Israel has won and they either leave the territory or accept to live side by side in peace next to Israel and disavow violence from here on out, they get to live in Gaza without having to leave and without being hunted down. Are they going to try to reach for that particular goal? Are they going to try to be not hunted down by Israel? Or are they going to try to push the envelope and see what they can get away with? I'll let you guess. What do you think they're going to do? I'll let you guess. Because probably what you'll guess is not too different than what I would propose that they were doing. But maybe it is. All right, you want me to tell you anyway? Okay, I'll tell you. I believe that the great apes at play here, and we're all great apes, so if that offends you, well, go learn a thing about science. The great apes at play here are not going to do the right thing. And I hope I'm wrong. But my guess is they're going to do a bunch of shenanigans in an effort to not. They might do all kinds of trickery, like they might pretend that they're going to accept it and then not actually accept it. They might tell you, oh, we just want to negotiate this or the other thing, and then not actually deliver. This would not be new in their inventory of skills. So it would be no surprise whatsoever to see them do more such chicanery. Can I get a wump for the use of the word chicanery? Can I get that? You guys like chicanery? No. Well, chicanery for the win. Um, I personally believe that that is their plan, that they are going to implement. They're going to literally try to half-ass the situation, so to speak, as it were. They're going to attempt every way that they can to not officially refuse it, while at the same time not completely accepting it. They've already said, well, if Israel gets to negotiate, then we do too. After the agreement was already accepted by Israel and the Arab Unions or League or whatever they call themselves, Council, and the European Union. What does that tell you? That tells me, at least, that they're not serious. Because, sure, they may have disagreements, but I've already told you there are a lot of things that need to be negotiated. They need to be spelled out. They need to be spelled out. Right? It doesn't matter if you like the plan or not. There are things that need to be spelled out if the plan is going to go into effect. So by saying, well, we need to negotiate this because Israel got to negotiate it too, that's already a point of refusal. Because they're already saying they don't accept the plan and they're going to drag out the process as much as possible. That's literally what they're saying. Otherwise, they would say, sure, we accept it and then we'll enter negotiations because that's part of the process. So the fact that they haven't accepted it in its current form and that they're trying to drag out the negotiations as long as possible tells me that they are literally still dependent on Iranian funding from the Islamic Republic of Iran, the dictatorship that oppresses the Iranian people. They are literally waiting on word from Iran on whether or not they should stop this war. And before you say, oh, it's just crazy, why would they listen to Iran? Iran's gotten their butt kicked. Why would they listen to them? They listen to them because Iran is the only power that has any ability to influence them at this point. If you think I'm crazy about that, well, I don't know what to tell you. It is very clear and obvious to me that the Palestinian leadership of Hamas is basically looking for ways to not commit to this agreement. Would that I were wrong. I wish I were. You've been watching my channel for a while. You know my predictions or prognostications or analysis of the situation is just not very wrong very often. Unfortunately, the things I predict that are not so great for Israel or for the world or for the Palestinians, unfortunately, they tend to happen a lot. So do the good things, by the way. So it's not all bad, but things I'm, and by the way, it's not some glass crystal ball prediction. I'm not reading voodoo magic. This isn't woo stuff. This is a simple analysis of the clear public information that we know. And of course, there's more behind the scenes that we don't know. But in an analysis, the clear, cold analysis of what we have in the public information, and I'm certainly not the only one who's making this type of prediction, if you want to call it that, or analysis, it seems very obvious that the Hamas has no interest whatsoever in ending this war, or they would have jumped at the opportunity because there's a lot of room for negotiation, and they get amnesty. And reportedly, many fighters of Hamas, many terrorists in the Gaza Strip, are ready to give up. They are ready to surrender. They want to surrender. They want to say, okay, the war is over. They want to get back to rebuilding their lives. But their paymasters outside of the Gaza Strip, living comfortable billionaire lives in Qatar, because Israel did not eliminate their top bosses last month, those bastards are making the people in the field in Gaza, the actual Palestinians who are suffering for the benefit of the political leaders in Qatar, those bastards in Qatar, they don't want the war to end. Probably because, like I said, they're still getting money from Qatar, despite Qatar saying they wanted the war to end. And they're still getting money and supplies and everything else they need from Iran. It's just that simple. And you can say, well, how are they getting supplies from Iran? First of all, they have tons of supplies that they've built up over the last 20 years. Israel has not gotten to every single supply room and weapons cache. Right? So despite the sealed border around Gaza between Israel, and by the way, Egypt's border is 10 times more. How? Well, first of all, they still have tunnels. And they still keep digging tunnels, despite all the risk that it involves. Right? They dig right under the feet of the IDF in the Philadelphia corridor. If you think they're not doing it, you're wrong. And yes, Israel has methods of detecting that kind of digging. And yes, the Palestinians have methods of avoiding being detected. How? Well, they dig deeper than the detectors can detect. They dig at times when the detectors may be not paying attention or not very sensitive to what's happening below their feet. There's a number of ways they keep doing this. They dig in areas and times and places where there are no detectors at the moment. And the Egyptians let them do it. And by the way, they also keep coming in through the trucks, the rare trucks that come in through other crossings, like the Egyptian crossing. How do they do that? Well, because it's practically impossible to actually inspect every single cubic inch of what comes through an aid truck. Not exactly impossible to hide weapons in those kind of things. It is not the easiest thing in the world, but it is certainly doable. Kangui Masait. Yeah. So that is what's holding them up. That's why they're dragging their feet. They don't want this deal to go through. Because if this deal goes through, their world collapses. At least the leaders of it at the political level. Hamas's world collapses. What do I mean by that? Well, if this deal goes through, effectively the war will end, if it actually goes through. Yeah, if the exchange of prisoners happen and the IDF pulls out of Gaza, according to the stages, and they set up an international force and Hamas leaves power, that will end the war kinetically for the time being. And then that would create an environment which, once again, will set up an opportunity for peace to be something attainable, not just between Israel and the Palestinians, but many of its neighbors, Israel and the Saudis, Israel even and the Qataris possibly, even in Israel and Indonesia. There are many countries that would love to have peace with Israel. They would love to have the blessings of the prosperity that come with having peace with Israel, because Israel is an economic powerhouse and a technology powerhouse and loves to share its technology and grow its prosperity in partnership with other countries, regardless of their religion or creed or race or anything like that. Right? Israel does business around the world, including with Arab countries, including with other Muslim countries that aren't even Arab or whatever. Um, Israel wants to do more business and partnerships with countries around the world. So there is no shortage of potential avenues for growth for any country that wants to partner with Israel. And that would end effectively a lot of what Hamas is trying to fight for. Because if Israel is doing business with half of the Muslim world, and specifically if they make peace with Saudi Arabia, the mothership of Sunni Islam, the mothership of Islam, regardless whether you're Sunni or Shia, right? Mecca and Medina are there. That's holy to all Muslims, whether they are Sunni or Shia or whatever. If there's peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and Hamas knows this, and this is why Hamas launched the war on October 7th. I keep saying that because it's true. If there's peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, effectively the war between the Muslims and the Jews, or Islam and Judaism, kind of over. That's it. That's the end. There is no more. It's not justified anymore. If the Saudis declare peace with Israel, if Saudi Arabia, the spiritual and religious capital of Islam, declares peace with the Jews, that's an amazing event that will radically change the world. Now, will Iran still do bad things? As long as their government is in power, they probably will, because there's still a bunch of psychopaths who are leading that dictatorship in Iran. It's just a show. What's just a show? You mean the agreement is just a show? It could very well be just a show. But for the time being, it's the only show in town that could be different than what's currently happening in terms of the war. And we could see an amazing amount of improvement in political relationships in the region, including a reduction of violence, right, by an ending of multiple wars on multiple fronts between multiple countries. We could see an immense reduction of interstate violence and an incredible increase in interstate economic partnerships and prosperity and cooperation and development and all those things. But those things are still pipe dreams. Just to be clear, we're not there yet. They are still pipe dreams. And the only reason that they're pipe dreams is because Hamas is holding up the world. Hamas is literally holding the world hostage right now when it comes to this deal. Sure, they don't have guns and ammo and hostages from every nation on earth, but they are politically holding up the realpolitik as a hostage to their interest right now because they are dragging their feet. The entire bloody world that is of relevance and consequence has said they endorse this. Iran hasn't, sure, but Iran is the head of the snake in this whole thing, so you wouldn't expect them to. But the fact that Qatar has endorsed it, Qatar, the state that currently protects Hamas's top politicians, they've endorsed this deal. That means Qatar got sick and tired of getting in trouble because of Hamas, and they are not the kind of people to want to have to sustain multiple attacks from Israel attacking the targets that they're harboring. So they were publicly angry. Silently, I don't think they were angry at all. Notice, by the way, the words of Trump's agreement, executive order with Qatar, saying that the United States would protect Qatar if it came under attack from anybody, which means not just Israel, but if Iran strikes at Qatar again. You remember that they struck at them? Do you remember that during June, during the war? If anybody strikes at Qatar, the United States may respond politically, economically, militarily, or otherwise. That's the executive order, which, by the way, is already not just an order. It's a military protocol. The United States has an enormous airbase there. Of course, they're going to protect Qatar. Why didn't the United States protect Qatar in this hit? Well, President Trump will say he didn't know about it until the very last minute. I call BS. the intelligence that's leaked that shows the contrary is much clearer about this. Not only did Trump know about it, he coordinated it with Israel and Qatar. They all knew. I mean, of course, Israel knew, but Qatar and Israel coordinated this with Trump. And then they did their whole public display of acrimony and all that kind of stuff. And then Trump got to say to Israel, "You apologize to the head of Qatar." It's all political theater. So again, Qatar is probably still funding Hamas, but maybe a little bit less, and certainly with more pressure saying, "Hey guys, you've lost, give it up." So yes, Qatar would probably like to pay Hamas less and less and maybe stop eventually, but they're probably still paying them something. They're definitely supporting them. What is Al Jazeera? What is all the money they're spending still to this day in universities and colleges around Europe and the United States? What is all the money they're paying to different groups that are supporting the demonstrators, that are supposedly pro-Palestinian demonstrators? But as you know, they're actually anti-Palestinian because they are pro-terrorist, and the terrorists are the ones who are oppressing the so-called Palestinians and preventing them from actually getting a state. So they're not pro-Palestinian. As I've said many times, the only nation on earth that is actually pro-Palestinian, that has actually done something to help the Palestinians get anywhere near to statehood, is Israel. That's the only so-called pro-Palestinian country on earth, because they actually want non-terrorist Palestinians to be in charge. The problem is the Palestinians keep choosing terrorists to be in charge of themselves. That should change. Until that changes, they're not getting a state. It's a pretty basic concept. Israel, you can say to me, well, Israel had terrorists before Israel was reestablished in 1948. Yeah, and you know what Israel did? Israel got rid of those terrorist groups, yeah? And it allowed the non-terrorist mainstream political parties to have the power. Avodah, Likud, all that. The crazy ones were considered outcast, and they were dissolved. And the groups, the military groups or paramilitary groups that existed in Israel before 1948 all fell in line with the Haganah, which became the IDF. So we have the power of the gun here held in the hands of one entity, and that entity is the government of Israel, and the government of Israel controls one military and police force. It's not split between multiple parties. It's not split between multiple factions. In the Palestinian territories, it is still split between multiple factions. They don't have a single unit or a single armed force or a single police force. None of that. Judea and Samaria, where the Palestinians live in areas A and B, they have Fatah run, right? Palestinian Authority run troops, forces, police, whatever you want to call them. In Gaza, they have completely different entities. And by the way, even in areas A and B where the Palestinian Authority is in Judea and Samaria, they have many factions. There's Hamas there, by the way. There are Hamas terrorists there. There are Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists there. There are PFLP terrorists there. There are DFLP terrorists there. There are Islamic State is there. You name it. Al-Qaeda in the West Bank is there. Just like they have in Gaza. They have many different terrorist groups there. They're still very factionalized. And until that ends, until they have one force that actually controls them properly and doesn't just go on violent rampages to try to destroy its neighbor, this war just keeps going on. And that, again, that is the interest of Hamas and many groups in Gaza. PIJ has already said they refuse the deal. PIJ isn't Hamas, but Hamas has to accept it. And guess what? They have to confer with PIJ to get a unanimous approval, apparently, which is insane and ridiculous. But that also goes to show you, even if Hamas accepts the deal, the PIJ could mess it all up. They could not hand over the hostages that they're controlling, which we know that they're controlling. They could launch attacks on their own, thus giving impetus to Israel to respond, thus canceling the deal. So this is a very, very fragile deal, and it is not likely to pass easily. But even if it does pass, it is very fragile, very vulnerable to many different kinds of breakage points. But hopefully it will go through, and we'll see a new age of peace and prosperity in the Middle East. It's just, as I always say, the Messiah may be coming back, but I ain't waiting up nights. So that said, I wish you all peace and prosperity and health and good fortune and all those good things. Health and happiness and freedom. And till the next one, hit the like and subscribe and comment and share if you would. It tells the YouTube to tell people to watch more of my videos, which would be nice. Anyway, that's it for now, folks. Shalom.